So now you don't know who you are because all you've ever done is survive, and now you're trying to live your life and do all these things you want to do, but you don't even know what you want to do. Personality is just all of your patterns. Then if you grew up in certain situations, then maybe your personality and your patterns are just survival mechanisms that you created to survive. And now that's who you think you are, but that's not actually who you are. It's just who you had to be to survive. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about the differences between introvert and extrovert, and how that applies to me in my life. I will always say that I'm an introvert, but I have never really identified with that strongly. So I wanted to spend some time thinking about it and really looking into it, and I feel like I made some interesting discoveries. Introvert and extrovert describes a personality type, and according to Wikipedia, personality describes the behavioral, cognitive, and emotional patterns that make up a person's unique adjustment to life. So, people casually use the word personality to describe how a person is, which is true. That's a very general summary of what that means, but I think it's important to notice the word pattern in that definition. It is who you are and what you look like to other people, but individually, your personality means what your patterns are, what the patterns that other people see in you that help them define you into different categories in their brain, because humans have to do that. Your personality is developed as you grow up, you go to school, you spend time with your family or lack of family, spending time with other people in the world in different situations. And it's not really something that you're born with, and it just is you and never changes and never grows. It's something that is developed as you're growing up and changes. You may be predisposed to having certain personality traits more than another one, but all of this can be changed and impacted by different environments or experiences you have. If personality is just all of your patterns, then if you grew up in certain situations, then maybe your personality and your patterns are just survival mechanisms that you created to survive. And now that's who you think you are, but that's not actually who you are. It's just who you had to be to survive these situations. Asking if somebody is an introvert or an extrovert is kind of like a stereotypical new job question, icebreaker question. And in the past, I have always said I am an introvert because generally when I meet new people, I'm quiet. Um, I'm more likely to be quiet and engage in a situation kind of on the side rather than fully be in it. Um, and I like working by myself and like quiet, chill vibes. But I'm starting to realize that a lot of those traits that I kind of thought were me and who I am were just things that I had to do to survive different situations I was in and get through them. And I kind of just made it who I was because I needed to be something. I was looking at different job descriptions to see what I might want to do next. Um, and I was very confused because a lot of the jobs I was interested in, or the jobs in the fields that I'm interested in, all seem to like require this like energetic personality, or extrovert personality, and I don't really identify with that. And in the past, in my teaching, when I have to be in front of a group of kids, it is extremely draining for me to do that. Also, I'm gonna make a video on codependency in teachers and how that can show up and mess everything up, so wait for that. I was feeling confused and lost because all of these jobs that, like, in theory I like, but I don't want to be the energetic person in front of the room that's convincing everybody to be excited about this thing. I cannot do that. Even if I'm excited about it, it cannot be my job to make other people excited about it. So I was just confused. But at the same time, I like working with people. I like talking to people. I love having good conversations with people, and I need those in my life. I love working with kids. I like talking to kids. I like helping them and being with them in situations to support them. But I can't be this thing that all of these job descriptions were saying that they were asking for. So I connected all of this with the things I have been finding and researching about narcissistic patterns in people. And the more that I sort of connected it and saw different things, a lot of the traits that you will typically see in an introvert are very similar to the traits and patterns of people who have spent a lot of time or raised by narcissistic people and being around that energy a lot of the time. And I first connected this within myself of the trait of liking to be alone or needing to be alone to recharge. And I have definitely always needed alone time. It is definitely something I need, but I also realized that growing up, I was sort of forced to have alone time, and that's how I learned how to cope with things and deal with things, was by being alone and like figuring it out by myself. So now when I need alone time, I think I'm this introvert who needs alone time, when really that's just the pattern of coping that I have had in my life. And I haven't been able to create a pattern of resting or healing or solving problems with other people, because I haven't had the opportunity to have a type of relationship where I can actually solve problems with another person. I've always had to just solve it myself. So do I really prefer to do it by myself, or have I just been forced into thinking that I prefer to do it by myself? When I was alone as a kid and when I'm alone now, it allows me to just worry about myself, just feel what I'm feeling, not worry about what other people are feeling or putting onto me, or who I should be to them, or how I should act, or all of these expectations that they have for me that I can feel that they have. When I'm alone, I don't have to worry about that, and I can just focus on me, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. When I'm around other people, it is much harder for me to center in on myself, because I'm picking up on all of this stuff around me, like scanning for threats, making sure I'm acting properly. Am I really an introvert, or are all of those things just survival mechanisms and patterns that I've carried in from my childhood and are not actually how I perform best? Another thing that has made me identify more as an introvert is that when I meet new people, I'm generally quiet. I don't initiate conversations. I don't bring up small talk. But if somebody does that to me, I will 100% engage in it. And I realized, if this, like, following this logic, then when I was younger, I had to be quiet so I could gauge what this other person was like, see if it was safe to be myself around them, see what I could say, what I couldn't say, what I could do, what I couldn't do, in order to keep myself safe emotionally to be in that situation. So if this was an unsafe person, I needed to gauge that so I didn't share too much or do something that would make them mad. But if they were a safe person, then I was able to gauge that, and then I could actually be myself with them. But I needed to be quiet and remove myself first so I could see what their deal was. And all of this is from my experience being an introvert, but I am sure the same thing applies to the other side of an extrovert. Because all of my survival mechanisms are about making myself small and quiet and invisible and not seen. So that applies. But there's other survival mechanisms that lend themselves more to being seen and being loud or being funny, to have a certain type of attention, like you're controlling what type of attention is on you, can be filed under extrovert. So as I'm figuring out, which of these traits are survival mechanisms and which are like truly who I am, I don't need to completely change my life. I don't need to not spend any alone time. ever again, because I definitely need that. But I can be intentional about my alone time, be intentional with myself, and be able to act how I want to act around everyone no matter what. Of course, not in a hateful way, but just be able to be myself around other people no matter what they think. And be able to be myself in all of these situations. So when I have my alone time, it's just actually peaceful, relaxing alone time and not recovering alone time. And in the past, if I didn't get alone time, I would have I would be so overwhelmed and I would shut down because I would not be able to deal with all this stuff around me. But the problem isn't not having enough alone time. The thing I need to work on is developing other coping things and skills to build myself up so I can be around other people and be myself at the same time. So then my alone time can just be peaceful alone time, and I don't need to act like a different person in front of other people. I can just always be myself, and I don't need to recharge in the same way that I have in the past. So this is an interesting concept that I'm going to be thinking about for a little while as I'm seeing where it pops up in my life. But it's just very interesting to me to think about that our personalities are just the patterns that we have in all of these areas of our life. So it doesn't, and patterns can change just like habits. Your habits are just patterns of what you do every day, and you can definitely change your habits. So you can definitely change your personality. But I think the first step is just seeing maybe what your current personality is, and seeing what still aligns with who you actually know you are, and then going through and seeing what are some lingering traits that maybe don't really apply to you anymore or benefit you anymore. And then you can work from there.